Speaker on. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council. As those of you at home can see, we are spaced appropriately according to COVID restrictions. We are not yet able to welcome you to the chamber because of these restrictions, but as soon as they are removed, you will be welcomed back live into the chamber. Please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. This is particularly significant this week in NAIDOC Week, as we recognise First Nations across this country. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. This too is particularly significant as we are on the eve of Remembrance Day, when we remember all those who have suffered and died in defence of this country and to protect the freedoms we enjoy today. Please remain silent for 1 minute in honour of the sick, injured and the fallen in all wars. Thank you. We pray for understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. I remind you that all council meetings are live streamed through the council's website and a copy of the agenda is available by downloading from this website. I remind elected members to use your microphones when I indicate to you that you can speak and that you raise your hand when you wish to be heard. Usual meeting etiquette and protocols apply during the meeting, and I ask you now to turn off your mobile phones or place them on silent for the debates. In the case of an emergency, an alarm will sound, and then please follow directions of the staff. Thank you. We have no apologies. Are there any conflicts of interest by elected members that need to be declared? None are declared. There are no leave of absence. Confirmation of minutes, I seek a mover. Councillor Lemon, seconded Councillor Dawes. All those in favour? Carried. We have one deputation. It was not able to be printed because it came in after. It is from Mr Malcolm Dixon regarding the item 14.6, bike riding in Burnside and the community survey questions. Right, he's ready, so I welcome Mr Dixon to speak. And so you have 5 minutes, Mr Dixon, and a warning bell at 4 minutes. And then please remain behind so that if any of the elected members wish to ask some questions, they can do so of you. It's your turn to speak.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to present this deputation. I understand.
Sorry, could you speak up just a little louder, please? Or can the microphone be adjusted at all? Okay. Yeah, hold it close to your mouth.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you
very much. I understand that you have had the handouts on your screens, and I hope that you've in fact read the first handout, which explains my position that I'm speaking on behalf of the Burnside Bicycle User Group, or BBUG as the acronym is. Am I correct that you all have that? Thank you. I have two members of our committee present. Unfortunately, it was rather late notice I gave them, so we couldn't have any more at the moment as they had conflicting appointments. We support item 146 on your agenda, in particular section 1, and I hope to give you some of the reasons why we are supporting that. Can I refer you to handout 2, which is a newsletter, actually, a newsletter showing Goodwood Primary School and children and bike racks. I hope you have that in front of you. Oh dear.
No, we don't have a copy of that, but you can talk about it, I'm sure. And
Okay.
if we haven't got it, we can see
it. Illustrates, it's a newsletter from the Mayor, Michael Hewitson of Unley, who in Unley Council in 2016 made an active transport plan for, which included cycling and walking, and they've been executing that plan over the last 4 years. There was particularly a photograph there and an interview with the principal of the Goodwood Primary. He said it has been a phenomenon in the last few years that the cyclists in, the students in Goodwood Primary had gone from virtually none to some 100 who are cycling to school. I think that's pretty outstanding, frankly, and the picture illustrated all the bikes there to show why that was the case. So that was a direct result of Unley Council's active transport plan. Now, if you could just pause on that thought, and I just want to digress slightly. I had, over the weekend, I did a little web survey of the number of students in Burnside schools. I took the liberty of including Marrickville High and Primary and Loretto because they're on our immediate boundary, and many of the students there are actually parents live in Burnside. I excluded the Parkside Primary and Glenosmond Primary, although again there are ones there, and I can't quite rationalise why I decided I opted off that one, but I put 12 schools together. I guess many of you know how many the total is, but I was blown away. Excuse me, I've just got to refer to my notes to make sure I quote you the correct number. 12,484 students. That's a pretty amazing number to me. Now, you councillors and indeed responsible citizens such as our group are responsible in many ways for for their safety, for getting them to school and their lifestyle, and because they're disenfranchised in effect because they're under 18, they don't have a vote, so they don't have a say. So they rely on us to make improvements and so that they can, in fact, have, if they wish, the safe passage to and from school. Now, it makes you realise when you think of that number, we've all been when you visualise that in term, traffic is quite different to school holidays. We've all noticed that. And indeed, we've all seen the bum fights that happen at the ingress and egress at schools, how parents are double ranking and goodness knows what. But can I cast you back to Goodwood Primary? Just think that it could be the norm, that holiday traffic could be the norm if we started to get a lot of those children walking or cycling to school.
Mr. Dixon, that's actually 5 minutes. You may not have heard the 4-minute warning bell. I'll give you just a minute longer with the acceptance of the rest of the
Okay,
group.
well,
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, I obviously getting worked up there. Look, there was also another handout, a transport plan. I won't dwell on that. And there was also a handout, I hoped, which was a heritage ride, which shows that our organisation are not only doing advocacy work, but we are trying to make events for Burnside users. We are all Burnside resident ratepayers, so Burnside we want to make it an even better place to be. And I thank you very much indeed for listening to us.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. If you just stay there with the microphone, I know that Councillor Dawes would like to ask you a question, so you can keep your microphone ready to answer.
Certainly.
I'll turn mine off and then...
Thank you, Mayor, and I love your passion, Malcolm, always have. On the map, on that stress map, I noticed that I think it's the Prospect Council have got a series of blue lines. Do you know what they did?
Yes, I'm sorry. Because of time, I had to shortcut that. The blue lines, this is an up-to-date survey, incidentally. It was only released last month. It's by We Ride. It's an Australian organisation, and they're monitoring all councils on the ease of being able to walk or ride to shops, schools, and you will note that Unley and Prospect are heavily in blue. Unfortunately, Burnside and other councils are dragging their feet a bit there. If that was a bigger map, you would also see some other of the seaside councils, Port Adelaide, Sturt, Marion, would have quite a bit of blue line too. Did that answer your question?
Thank you very much, Malcolm.
So anyone? Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for coming along tonight, Mr Dixon. I absolutely support your proposal and your intent to increase people, and especially students, on bike riding. The major challenge for us is managing the interface between bike riders and other members of the community, because we have a lot of people who walk and use our parks and footpaths and things like that. Do you think there'd be a case, or would you be happy with council considering making all its council roads 40k per hour? Do you think that would help make things safer for cyclists and encourage more cyclists, as everybody wants?
I think it definitely should be considered. I'm not here to say what should be done, but I think it is very well worthwhile considering. But I did fail to make one important point, and that is it is imperative that Burnside complete and update an active transport plan. Councillor Hubel has kindly informed me that it's being that the active transport is going to be amalgamated into a total transport plan. But look, without that, we really can't go. We can't move forward without a plan. And look, there's money. There's federal money. You all know that that's available for shovel-ready projects. But we're not in a position to even offer that until we've got a plan.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. Councillor Henschke.
Oh, good evening. Thank you, Mr Dixon and your group. This information here, you referred to a particular organisation and their app, perhaps, and I've been made aware by other residents in Giles Street who've done a survey of the number of cyclists that have ridden down Giles Street, and they've made me aware that there's another app. So are you aware of many apps, cycling apps, because they've identified another route, which is a parallel route along Portrush Road to get people from Norwood all the way to the Mount Lofty, and it's quite remarkable. So yes, I wondered if you had any comments about that and I suppose the citizen science kind of approach, you know, because we see lots of cyclists and people can perhaps start collecting that data.
Look, like every plan, there's invariably errors or differences of opinion. That's human nature, isn't it? We as a group have thoughts on cycle routes, but we would certainly like to work with the experts on that and make suggestions. But Councillor Henschke, you're a bicycle rider, so you're aware of what I'm talking about.
Well, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands up, but I do want to congratulate you on the initiative you had last year, and of course History Month was cancelled this year, but when you did run those tours for on cycles for people to move around the city and look at various heritage sites. So thank you for initiating that. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you all.
Right, there are no petitions. Public question time, as you know, is withdrawn temporarily. Questions on notice should have been received, the responses this afternoon. Motions on notice, I've not received anything. And questions without notice, are there any questions without notice? Right, motions without notice, I haven't received anything. So I'll now go through the reports of officers. And the first one is 14.1, Councillor Lemon. 14.2, Councillor Davey. 14.3, Councillor Davey. 14.4. If there's no one, I'll seek, thank you, Councillor Cornish. Seconded, Councillor Dawes. All those in favour? Carried. Audit Committee minutes, 14.5. Anyone wish to withdraw that one? All right, then I seek Councillor Hughes and Councillor Jones. All those in favour? Carried. 14.6. Councillor Davey. I'm going to suggest when we get to that one that we move into, you can have a consider this until we get there, when we get there. But I'm going to suggest that we might move into informal mode just for a little while, for whatever time you suggest, when we get to that point, so that there can be some discussion prior to the motion being put. 14.7, Councillor Carbone, sorry, I'm trying to write at the same time. Carbone, and 14.8, Councillor Lemon. 14.9, awards. No one. All right, so Councillor Hubel, you're moving, and Councillor Cornish seconding. All those in favour? Carried. Proposed themes for community funding. Councillor Davey. Right, so we'll go over the page. There's nothing on 15. Mayor's report. Someone like to move it? Councillor Hughes. Seconded by Councillor Dawes. Just a comment, it was really interesting and my privilege to represent you all at the LGA AGM last week. And I hope you had a chance to read my short report that summarised most of what I thought were important on that particular day. All of those in favour? Carried. Reports of work of members or delegates working parties. If you make sure that you submit anything that you have not as yet done so to Rob as soon as possible, so they can be included in the minutes. 18.1, report from Pembroke School. We don't need to accept a report, anything with that. We just acknowledge it, but also wanted to acknowledge the passing of Councillor and Mayor June Schaefer, who passed away a little over a week ago. She was a councillor, as it says there, from 79 to 89, and mayor. I think she was the second female mayor of Burnside from 89 to 91. Oh, there's just a recommendation to receive all those three. Oh, yes, and extend, and in the motion, in the officer's recommendation, there is a motion that relates to extending deepest sympathy. So I'll seek somebody to move that. Councillor Piggott.
But I think it's very appropriate.
And I think she actually provided a significant contribution to the city of Burnside in those years that she represented the community. So it was very sad to hear about her passing at the Shed event last week. That's where I heard about it. You're going to move it? The Pembroke one first? No, just move it as one. All right, and seconded. Oh, do you wish to speak or?
Yes, can I just, my thing won't come on.
Oh, sorry.
Do you know what? I'm hitting the wrong button. I'm muting myself. I'm so sorry. It's been so long since I've been in here. I just wanted to also mention, but we don't need to make it a formal memorial. I was really saddened by the passing of Phyllis Skinner.
Oh, yes.
Now, Phil Skinner was involved at the Eastwood Community Centre forever and a day, and a vaudevillian in South Australia. She died very recently at 98. But what impressed me about her was when she was about 95, she was still providing afternoon teas and entertainment to the old people at Eastwood Community Centre. And I remember she was talking to me and she was saying, very important that there's a tablecloth and good china. And I was very, very impressed with that. And she did that well into her 90s. So I think we're very grateful for her continued involvement. And maybe that's what you need, Councillor Piggott, to get to 98.
You also need to be able to tap dance and high kick well into your 90s, as Phil Skinner could do. Would you like to add something there to that same motion, to that?
Would that be a separate motion? I'll move this.
Oh, okay, you have. Sorry, separate then. I'm happy. I need a seconder for Councillor Piggott. Councillor Davey, thank you. All those in favour? Carried.
That's actually putting me on the spot because I remembered that I wanted to write something and then forgot until just now. Can I do this at the next meeting? Is that all right? Thank you.
That will be fine and probably more appropriate.
Thank you.
Who was the seconder for Pembroke? I'm not sure if Rob got it down.
Oh, no, we didn't do Pembroke.
No, we didn't do it separately. We did it all at once. Didn't we?
We've moved 2 and 3 together.
Ah,
So we
right. So now we need a Pembroke one. Right. So Councillor Hughes, you're moving it. And I need a seconder, please. Councillor Lemon. Those in favour? Carried. Other business, well, I'm going to leave those till the end in case there is. Now we'll go back to 14.1. Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I move a formal motion that item 14.1, and Rob should have this on your screens, that item 14.1 regarding the Code of Practice Procedures at Meetings be deferred to a special council meeting to be held on the 26th of November 2020 to allow council members an opportunity to provide further feedback on the document. And I'll speak to that briefly. One of the reasons that I seek a deferral is that we had one workshop on this that blew out to 2 workshops, and not everybody in this chamber came to both workshops. Some people came to one, some people came to the other, some people came to none. And what we have is a really fine piece of work in terms of exploring what we all talked about, but it's very dense and it's very detailed. And I don't believe that a lot of people in this chamber, and I include myself in that, have had a chance to look at it as thoroughly as this deserves to be looked at. I don't think we've had the chance to ask the questions and to actually give it some thought. The other reason, which is why I've actually looked at a special meeting, because it's very important, I think, that this code of practice is owned by all of us, so that when we do make a resolution for it, it is owned and it belongs to us all, and that means we have to give it reasonable debate, due consideration and thoughtfulness. And that's the other reason why I've actually moved this motion. If we start with this about 2.5 hours from now, I reckon, we might be done with it, possibly. And there's a lot of things on our agenda tonight that actually must be looked at tonight. So I think having a special council meeting on the 26th of November, which has been put aside, scheduled for a workshop, but is one that can actually wait. It's not an important workshop, it's not a critical workshop. I think that gives us the whole one item on an agenda at a special council meeting so that we can get this right and we can start the new year with a new code of conduct. So I hope you support me in this.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes? You wish to speak? No, this is a normal motion. It's a substitute for the original. So you can speak. Oh, okay. Yes, Councillor Turnbull?
I have a question of Councillor Lemon. Do you envisage this being a Zoom meeting or face-to-face?
You can't address a direct question to Councillor Lemon. You can ask her in her summing up to... You can ask her in her summing up to respond to your question.
Right,
Or it may be that the CEO can answer the question.
right, so I'll ask the CEO if he could answer it. Will it be a Zoom meeting or a face-to-face meeting for this special one on the 26th?
Yes, through Madam Mayor, for a special council meeting, it would be a face-to-face council meeting as we're sitting this evening.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Piggott?
I'm going to speak against this. No surprise there, Councillor Lemon. I think, actually, I missed the first one. I'm not sure, actually. I certainly was at the second one. I think we got to have, I mean, I agree with Councillor Lemon, there's a serious amount of work has gone into this. I think there's been a serious amount of opportunities to get elected members' input into this. Looking at the summary, I think most of it is actually fairly uncontroversial. It's landed in areas, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder, I guess, but it has landed, I think, in a fairly sensible way, that fairly supported by what's happening in other councils, by and large. The only one that I'm not really sure I've got my head around totally, but I think we should debate it, is the time you're going to let me speak, for instance, now on this issue. Which is proposed to take from 5 to 3. But otherwise, I do feel that we've had a good opportunity to actually go through this. I don't think we should be fearful of it. It's a code of practice. And I don't see it's going to change things dramatically from a democratic point of view. Perhaps from an efficiency point of view, it might do. So I think we should debate it tonight. If we do, I would propose that I would be happy to run the recommendation as it is, which would allow, you know, amendments in the normal way if people were able to do that and wanted to do that. I think we should do it tonight.
Councillor Dawes?
Can I ask a question first to the Mayor? If I speak to this motion and it loses, can I still speak to the officer's recommendation later? I'm guessing yes.
The answer is yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm the same as Councillor Piggott, I have to say. We've had lots of opportunities, and for all the workshops, I do keep a record of who attends, just I like to know who's there and so forth. And our first one on the 17th of September, 11 of 13 of us were there, including you, Grant, by the way. Yes. And 10 days later, I think, no, 12 days later, we had 9 of 13 of us, and you were there too, Grant. So, and there were two apologies. So that's a pretty good, in my opinion, attendance record for those 2 workshops. But I had forgotten that back in August 2019, we also had a workshop about public question time. We had a survey about public question time. So this has been going on for an awful lot of time. It's been a long time. And I do remember some councillors saying, let's get things done here. And we have discussed these items ad infinitum. Now, some of us don't agree with some of the items. I understand that. And that's going to be a difficult discussion for us tonight. But the same thing will happen on the 26th of November as what happened tonight. So, and I still think we can get through the agenda tonight because we have already agreed with 3 or 4 items. So I believe it's time. We've had sufficient workshops, discussions, etc. to go through the main points.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Worship. The mover said that delaying this would allow for further feedback, and I can't help but not quite get my head around that. What makes this particular report any bigger, any more complicated, any more controversial, any more important, or any more difficult to understand than essentially almost any other thing that's come before us in this chamber? We have discussed budgets, more or less, in one meeting. Just recently we discussed a very large grant for a cricket club in one meeting. What makes this any different or any harder? We've had 2 workshops. We have had a survey. We have discussed this
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt, but Councillor David, can you turn your microphone off, please?
Oh, sorry, I thought I was queued.
No, you raise your hand to cue.
We have discussed all of these items at length. I think we do have a fairly, almost a consensus on most of the items. The only thing that I can't help but feel is that this is a delay because they don't agree with some of the recommendations. And like Councillor Dawes said, and like Councillor Piggott said, I think we're on the right track. I think we agree with most of the items. Yes, the speaking time is going to be the most controversial one to understand, but just because we're not going to agree, and you're right, we're not going to agree then anyway, so what's the point in delaying it? Let's just get this done. We've discussed it to death. We've been surveyed. We all took part in the survey. We all know where we stand. We've had a very detailed workshops. We had a roundtable discussion during those workshops. We all put our thoughts forward. We know where we stand. There's no more discussion to be had. There's no more feedback to be had. We all know where we stand on particular matters in this report. So let's just vote on it and let's get it done. Let's not be so counsel about these things and just delay. Nothing's going to change between now and then. Let's just get it done and move on.
Now, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Apologies for not reading the procedure.
It's just that I was reminded last time that when I muck up with the microphones, people at home can't hear.
I recognise all of it. It's just getting used to so many systems. Thank you. Yes, I support this motion. I've only just on Friday morning seen it all come together. I think I attended one of the workshops, and it was actually my understanding that there would be a final workshop with a final document provided for us to discuss and debate, because I don't think that it's necessarily just a simple code of practice. It is quite detailed and quite different to what we've had before. It's got a lot of graphics in it and photos, and there are three key areas that I don't agree with that I'd like to debate. I mean, I'm very concerned about or unsure of the rationale for having presentations to council and why they are different to us having training sessions or workshops. I think 3 minutes time for us to debate a motion is too short, and I have serious concerns about us putting a motion on notice with all of our rationale for that and giving the CEO the opportunity to add to it or make comments on it. So they're my major concerns that I haven't come to grips with yet, and I think we need to debate more seriously, and I agree that a special council meeting would be a better way to do that. Thanks.
I don't see any other further hands. Councillor Hubel.
I have to very regretfully oppose this motion because I wouldn't be available on that 26th, that date. So given the fact that I wouldn't be able to attend, I'm always going to choose to be present for the debate. But I do support having a special meeting for this. This is a big deal, what we're doing. So I'm sorry.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I suppose I've of the mind of, yeah, it's not perfect, but let's just bed it down, get it done, and then we can do the tinkering at a later stage. Like, there are some things in here that really do concern me, and not just for us in the next 2 years, but also when a new council comes along, we're locking them in to this. And we need to actually provide some flexibility for a new council to easily make some adjustments to new situations and new circumstances. So I think it would be good to actually get, so I was of that opinion, but I actually think it's also a good idea that we all get our head around what the new rules are for us working in this chamber together going forward, and whether or not it is a special meeting where we can actually concentrate exactly on what the rules are that we all agreed to for that. I think I probably will support this at the moment, although obviously Councillor Hubel can't attend, which is probably something that is a bit of a concern to me, but I probably will support it at this stage.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I need to then ask a question and then make a declaration about that date as well. Are we locking in this code of practice to any new council? I would have thought that a new council would be able to review after a certain period of time, and that's probably where I need, through you, Chris, governance advice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might refer that to Karishma just for advice.
Thank you, Chris. Through the Chair, the Code of Practice is required to be reviewed once every year as per the regulations. So the intent is, if we adopt it tonight or this year, we will review it again next year.
Thank you for that. And I also need to declare that I will not be available on the 26th of November, so you would have to have the meeting without the Mayor present. And I would be very disappointed if I was not able to at least listen to the discussion and then also have an opinion or have a vote if it gets to, and remembering, of course, this requires a 2/3 majority vote in order for it to get through. So that's what just wanted to say before I move back to Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Well, I've picked the wrong date, clearly, and that I wouldn't want to have this meeting without everybody here. So I don't know what I can do about that. I actually truly believe that having a special council meeting, and whether it's on that date or some other date, that having a special council meeting is important for this, because while we just heard from staff that this gets reviewed every 12 months, that didn't answer the question in a real sense whether we're locking in the next council. I suspect we are in fact locking in the next council. So whether it gets reviewed every 12 months or not is not really material. The reason I wanted to do this isn't because of anything that's in there. And it's because there are some people that haven't had enough time, in spite of what other people have said. There are some people that haven't had enough time to get their heads around this, and I think that if we are going to sign off on this, and we're going to be talking about this for the next couple of hours, if not longer, if we're going to sign off on this, everybody in this chamber needs to own it, because we're going to be starting next year, presumably, with this new system. So I just don't think tonight's the night. There's a lot of things that are going to be that will require a lot of debate for the items that are left, and there won't be enough time. So I hope you do support this. We can actually vote this up, and we can in fact change the date. Can we not, Madam Mayor? Can we not change the date, even if it's voted up?
When you finish speaking, I have some information through the CEO about that.
So I hope you support it. The date isn't locked in. We can make a date that is actually more conducive to a whole council.
I'll defer to the CEO.
Through Madam Mayor, thank you for that. My advice to council would be, or to the mover, would be to remove the reference to a date, because under the requirements of the Act, we have to abide by the mechanism to call a special meeting. We can't rely on the motion here this evening. So what we could do is take the advice that you wish to hold a special meeting, then outside of this forum, we can call a special meeting at any time that's convenient. So you can't actually, to specify a date here is actually ultra vires.
So hold a special meeting on this.
So you can say hold a special meeting, just remove the date.
Yep.
And then at
To allow council.
That's right.
So we can do that, and I don't want to leave it forever and a day.
And I appreciate that, but because the power to call the meeting is either from the mayor can call it, or 3 elected members can call it.
Sure.
At a time that's convenient.
So we have now removed the date. And again, I'd like this done in the next few weeks. And the 26th of November would actually give us a couple of weeks to make comment and to actually, for administration to represent this report to us. Because bearing in mind when we start debating this, if this motion that I've just put forward doesn't get up and we actually start debating this, only 2 amendments can be made. Just remember that. So what you've got in there can only have 2 amendments. So you have your extra 5 minutes and there's only one other amendment. And people that want a different sort of amendment may well not be voting for the stuff that doesn't appeal to them too much. If this gets represented to us at a special council meeting, we could have all the items presented as separately. And that means that we've got a much clearer path to, in fact, settle the code of practice in a better way. So I hope you support it for that reason alone.
You have a question, Councillor Pickett?
I do. I just wonder, that practice just seems to be that the motion looked like losing on part of what we were debating, and we've now changed the motion, which allows it a greater chance to get up. Is that going to be part of the future code of practice?
I have to say I was a little concerned about, that's quite a significant change to the original motion in terms of removing the date. Advice from governance, I believe, at this point in time. Thank you. Because as Councillor Pickett said, that was done after we've heard everybody who wished to speak. So there's no opportunity for people to speak again now that the date has been removed. So I do think it...
Thank you, Mayor. Through the Chair, in our opinion, the intent is still the same. Current code of practice does not specify exactly how to change the wording in the motion. The new code of practice does. So in the new code, if there is wording provided in a motion, it cannot be changed on the spot. However, in this case, we believe the intent is still the same.
Thank you for that. Question, Councillor Lemon?
Yes, a question through you to the CEO. Did he not say that having a date was ultra vires? So then my original motion was illegal anyhow.
My advice, Madam Mayor, is we have a motion before us. We have a motion before us, and my recommendation is that we put it.
Yeah. Then I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Then the motion is lost. Are going to, Councillor Pickett, you'd like to speak on, to move the motion? Yes.
I would like to propose the officer's recommendation with one change. And that is at the end of number 1, I would like to say adopt the code of practice procedures at meetings, except to the extent that 4 minutes shall be the permitted time to speak. I think a 40% reduction of my time is just too much. on reflection. And look, I'm not sure I'm going to say much in regard to, I think there may be things that people might like to raise amendments and debate. I actually feel there's been quite a lot of work done. You probably don't really understand quite what it will mean in terms of how it will run and what it changes in terms of the balance of probabilities in the chamber. But I don't see anything in there that's going to cause us significant problems. I think it has actually gone through 2 workshops. We've all had a crack at me twice, apparently, at providing feedback on it. And I think my observation of what came out the other side really benefited from that. Certainly there were things that did come up in the workshops that haven't seen the light of day, and that's appropriate. So I think it's a good piece of work. We've got a officer's recommendation here, and I feel we should actually, short of any real disasters that you want to put an amendment for, I think we should vote it up and get on with using it. So I seek your support.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Carbone.
Oh, look, I like it. I know there was certainly a majority view for 3 minutes. There were some people who wanted 5 minutes. Straight down the middle, call it 4 minutes, call it even, and done deal.
Councillor Davey.
I'd like to make a second amendment. I'll make amendments, sorry. That 2 become that the CEO does not have power to provide comment to EMs on a motion on notice, formally on a motion on notice when it's published. Comments directly to the motion on notice. And my second amendment is that we exclude presentations and there be no presentations to council.
I'm going to seek some clarification on this through the CEO first.
Just a clarification question, Councillor Davey. I think I understand the intent. I'm not sure it's coming across in the words. As it's written now, my understanding is that if a councillor raises a notice of motion, I don't get to talk to that councillor to give them any feedback on that notice of motion. Is the intent that you don't want written commentary with regards to that notice of motion in the agenda?
That's right.
Yeah. So
I need to make it clear.
I'm comfortable with that. We just need to get the wording right.
I'm comfortable with having a discussion about it or feedback, which happens now, but I'm not comfortable with having it written on the in the agenda. So, if we could have a semicolon after 4 minutes, and if you make your suggested.
No, it's not a semicolon.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah. Sorry. No, it's actually.
May I suggest, Councillor Davey, and maybe this is just about me not liking this word about having the power, that the CEO does not provide written commentary within the agenda rather than directly motion to motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that clear to people now what that means in that second part of the amendment? Or first part of the amendment, I should say?
Semicolon, and that no presentations.
No, just with no presentation works fine grammatically.
With a capital P, because that's how it's presented in the agenda. Thank you. And just reiterating what I said earlier. Sorry?
I think you can just remove 4 as well. And with no presentations in the agenda.
Thank you, yes. Included in the agenda. I'm happy to concede the 4 minutes that Councillor Pickett has suggested, but I do not believe that we should have written commentary on our motions on notice. I think we need to be more disciplined with doing our research and providing our information. And I'm very happy that the CEO puts his contact, reference to please contact the CEO if any more information is needed. But I don't want to see direct involvement in the content of the motion on notice, and that's how I interpret this. And the other issue that I have is that we come to council and there's suddenly a presentation to us when we have a heavy agenda, lots of items of business, and we don't know a rationale for it. We mightn't be prepared for it. I just don't think council is the venue. It never has been in all my years on council for us to have presentations. I think that's what our training exercises are for, or our workshops. So hopefully you'll support these amendments. We haven't had an opportunity to debate them and discuss them formally, which I would have preferred. So hopefully these three amendments will be acceptable to everybody and they'll support it. Thank you.
I seek a seconder to the amendments. Failing there be a seconder, we revert back to the original motion, which ends at 4 minutes, I believe. Now, Councillor Hughes, are you seconding the original motion?
No, it's already been seconded.
No, that's been seconded. Okay, you wish to speak to this original motion?
I wish to propose an amendment.
Okay, so this is the second one.
This is why we're going to be here all night.
And we're not allowed to have any more than this one. This is the last one.
This is the second one.
Sorry? The first one doesn't count because it was, sorry, the first one doesn't count because it was lost. Thank you. I'm just, I haven't had one of these for quite a while. We do have governance officer there, so we can consult. Okay.
Sorry, Rob, I have sent something.
Councillor Davey, you need to turn your microphone off. Yes, and now I'll pass over to...
If I may, Madam Mayor, I think this is important. The First Amendment is counted as one amendment, even though it was lost. Oh, sorry, it elapsed. So we are now considering our Second Amendment, which is the last amendment that will be allowed in terms of this motion. Thank you.
Get it right.
I've sent Rob my proposed amendment. I personally don't have a lot of issues with things that were proposed in the document that came through, but I do have one proposal, and that is around, there was a change to an opening statement. However, the agenda papers still refer to the opening prayer, and having done a little bit of research around what other councils do, I feel that it would be appropriate to change this to a pledge, which is more basically putting the onus on us as individuals to... No, that's right.
I just thought that was already in the recommendations. I was just
the recommendation, the comment, it's called an opening statement, but the words still use the word prayer. And without, I guess, understanding where everyone sits from a religious point, I'm going to argue this not on the fact that it is around religion, but I actually think that it would be more appropriate for us as elected members to think about how we want to behave and how we want to treat each other and pledge that at the start of the meeting. So the onus is on us, essentially, around how we're going to behave and respect in the chamber. So this is something I have knocked up, so people may have some thoughts around the wording, but I think that we should, while we serve our community as elected members, we will show respect for each other, act honestly, decide wisely with good governance. And I think this really is putting the onus on us as individuals to think about how we're behaving in the chamber, rather than praying for assistance for someone else to help us make decisions. So I think on a whole, the balance of the comments and the things that came out of the workshop were there around the speaking times. Look, I would be happy to speak for 2 minutes. I've probably spoken for 3, maybe 4 today. But I think, you know, if you can't say it in a minute, you've probably lost people anyway. So I will leave it at that. I hope you support this amendment. Really, it's just to put it back on us and think about how we as individuals want to behave in this chamber at the start of our meetings.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Lemon, you wish to speak?
Yes, I do, thank you. I'm very happy to second that as a pledge, but I probably won't vote for this motion because I'm not happy with the 4 minutes. I think the 3 minutes should have stayed, and I don't think we debated that enough because while Councillor Piggott made a lot of the fact that we were very well workshopped, those well workshopped people wanted 3 minutes, not 4. I have a problem with this too, and the issue that I have with this, and it's a big one for me, and it always has been a big one for me, is on is our finish time. And that wasn't addressed in the workshops. But what we've got for a finish time in this is that by 10:30 we have to seek one extension, which will take us to 11. And before 11, prior to 11, we have to seek another extension, which will take us to 11:30. What I want for this code of practice is for flagfall to be at 10:30. No ifs, no buts, you will stop talking in mid-sentence the minute 10:30 hits. But I haven't got the opportunity to do that because we've had 2 amendments and we haven't actually had a lot of debate beforehand and we haven't actually had it divided up into different things.
Sorry, Councillor Lemon, I've just consulted, but you're actually not targeting this particular amendment on to the motion at the moment.
So I'm very happy with the prayer becoming the pledge because I think the prayer becoming the pledge absolutely is 21st century. We're here to serve the people of this community and to pledge that we will act honestly and in their best interests at the beginning of every council meeting has true meaning. So I'm happy to support that. I'm not happy to support 4 minutes.
Can I just ask a question of the mover? Did you intend for us all to make the pledge or just to be read as a statement at the beginning? Councillor Davey?
Thanks, Your Worship. That was my question, because my understanding is if something is a pledge, you actually have to say it.
I believe some other councils just have it read out at the beginning. Accept this as a suggestion. I don't know that I necessarily agree with the wording, and that's another debate. I will actually ask, would you consider removing the sentence that you've put there and we have some discussion about what that pledge might be in the future before we actually, because we can easily remove the prayer if that's what you're not liking, so. Put your microphone back on.
I would be happy to take feedback from others or, come up with suggestions, but yeah.
Anyway, we need to put to the vote because you've put that forward and we've got a seconder. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Hubel?
I'll speak against this. While I support the pledge itself, I think I had a look at the census data during the week, just because that's where I was at, and I could see that within the city of Burnside, as of 2016 anyway, only 35% of the population identified as no religion, and I think given that 65% then of the population, when asked to actively elect, are you religious or not, they're actually not saying, oh, don't know, they're actually saying, yes, I am. I think it's appropriate as a body representing those people that we retain a prayer. I'd probably support adding this, but certainly I wouldn't want to be voting to remove the prayer. Now, I also am regretfully not able to move an amendment to this motion as well, so I think the motion as it stands, regardless of where this amendment goes, is not something that I'm supporting. I won't talk about what that is because it's not relevant to the amendment that I'm talking about, but yeah, there we are.
Councillor Turnbull.
I would support the word pledge, but I don't support the 4 minutes. I think that's wrong. It's not much different from 5 by the time you keep going after the bell because you're in the middle of a sentence. So I can't vote for this until unless it was 3 minutes. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the amendment? Councillor Davey?
Sorry, I'm a little bit confused again. At number 2, we currently have the opening prayer. So what we're debating is that whether we have an opening statement or an opening pledge. Is that clarify? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Then I shall go back to Councillor Hughes to some. No, oh no, you don't. It's amendment. You don't. All right. Then I shall put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, can you? 6. Right. So the motion, the amendment is lost. So we go back to the original motion, and do I have to get someone to speak to it? Summarise it? Oh, okay. Question? While we find out the answer.
Thank you, Worship. Could I just ask why urgent business was put at the end of the agenda, the proposed agenda?
Do you mean today? For today's,
No, in the proposal, urgent business is item number 14, just after motions on notice and questions on notice and reports and public presentations and, yeah.
Through Madam Mayor.
Yep.
I'll get my team to, actually I'll hand it over to Karishma. She may know a better answer than I do.
Thank you, Chris. Through the Mayor, the reason for that was that's other business. We've just renamed it from other business to urgent business. We're also encouraging in other business to only raise items of urgency because everything else should really come in as a motion and notice or a question and notice. So that's the only reason it's at the back.
Urgent other business. Okay. I've got a different view that should be happening really early on if it's that urgent in the meeting and before we get down to the business, but I can't discuss that tonight. I do have another question which
Councillor Cornish, can I just say that if there was something that you felt or any elected member felt was an urgent matter that required something, then you could bring it to me as the presiding member and I can change the format of the order of the agenda accordingly.
Yep.
That is a safety gap for you.
That's a good workaround. Thank you, Your Worship. My next question, if I can, and I note that under the rules I won't be able to ask 2 questions in a row, so I'll have to only ask one and then I'll get reordered. So just making that note. But my next question is, I suppose every mayor, when they've started, has had the ability in the opening preambles, the silence, the Ghana, acknowledgement, has had the ability to actually, work on that themselves. They're running the meeting and they get to choose. We're locking the next mayor in to saying exactly these words in this document, no matter what. Is that correct?
Through the Mayor, that is correct. So again, answering that first question about locking the next council in, yes, to an extent, until they do their own review. And they can do that as soon as they start. Yeah.
Okay. If I can, I'll speak to the motion now, which is also something else that I won't be able to do under the new rules because I'd be also put at the end of the queue again. But I suppose I'm not going to support this motion, and primarily because of the 3 minutes. I think it should be 3 minutes and not 4 minutes as well. I think this is a purchase of time from Councillor Piggott, given the new rules also allow us another 2 minutes during an amendment to speak, even if we have spoken before. So that's actually 6 minutes in total, 4 plus 2, not 3. So is that not correct? That's how I read it, but amendments, extra 2 minutes.
Sorry, through the Mayor, could you please repeat that? Sorry, I was thinking ahead.
I thought you've got the right to speak again during an amendment under this new proposal. Is that correct? No, it's not. So once you've spoken once, okay. I retract my "you've purchased more time" comment than Councillor Piggott, but I still think 3 minutes is probably, if you can't say it in 3, you're not going to be able to say it in 4, so I won't support the motion.
Any other? Councillor Jones.
Look, I would prefer 3 minutes. Frankly, if you can't convince me in a minute, your argument's not up to much. But I think perhaps this is a question of, is the perfect the enemy of the good? And if we can get everything else through and the compromise is 4 minutes, I think I would reluctantly vote for it as better than nothing.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, I think I'm following a lot of other people here. A question first of all, if Councillor Pickett's motion loses, can we then do another motion about it being 3 minutes or not?
That was curiously a question that I was going to be wanting to ask as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Probably after it was lost or won.
If this motion is lost, we then revert back to the officer's recommendation and consider that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so...
Thank you, I think that's a good clarification for us all.
So as with the number here, I believe 3 minutes is right. Personally, I think only once have I had the bell over 2 years, 48 meetings. So surely, I think one of the other councillors said this to me, if you can't get it across in 3 minutes, it's not worth saying, one councillor told me. So surely we can be more disciplined in getting our point across within 3 minutes. So I'll be voting against that, the motion.
So, Councillor Jones, you have a question?
Sorry. So just to clarify my understanding, to get this motion through, it needs 2/3 of the people present. That's not including you? So we need 8 to vote in favour of it? 8. 8 out of 11. So just be careful about how perfect you want things to be.
Okay, is there anyone else who has not spoken who wishes to speak? All right, so I go back to Councillor Piggott.
Okay, thank you. Look, that's a good debate. Thank you. I feel compelled. It may be the last time. I feel compelled to fill 5 minutes here. Just a couple of points I wanted to pick up. Being locked in came up a couple of times, and it was a little bit overstated, I think. Karishma answered the first one to say it has to be reviewed every year. So we're locked in for 1 year. We're not locking the next mayor in. We're not even locking this mayor in. So let's get rid of that, of being too fearful of doing something tonight. Picking up what Harvey said, I think that's right. I think there are things in there. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's no question about that. But in actual fact, I think it would be good to get this code of practice signed off and rolled through. It won't be perfect, but we get the chance to tweak it when we go. And we probably won't know quite how it's not perfect until we actually use it. You know, we're predicting things at the moment. Some of them will be right, some of them will be wrong. We'll have things that we hadn't thought of tonight that we perhaps won't like. But we can change them all within the next year. In terms of 4 or 3, all jokes aside, the 5 minutes back to 3 is quite a dramatic change. It does make quite a big difference. Councillor Dawes says he's never been to the Bell. Well, you know, perhaps I've often been to the Bell, but perhaps I've got more points to put to the chamber of worth. I do think it is a constraint on, it will be a constraint on some people, and it may affect, perhaps, the quality of the debate if you push it back into 3. I actually didn't mind coming off 5. I could live with 3, in actual fact. I do feel, though, that probably at this point, such a dramatic change, we'd be better off with 4 and see how it goes. We can make it 3 next year. Can't we, Karishma? Do it again next year? Make it 3 next year. I do think it probably is sensible to actually go a compromise path in regard to the minutes of debate. And I don't think it's about whether you can have someone work it out in a minute, then you will never get them to do so. That is just not true. However, do you need 4 minutes? Maybe not. But I think it is worth voting this up, getting on with it and see how it goes. And let's see what we do with it next year when we review it. So I seek your support. Harvey was absolutely right. Don't let perfect get in the way of good. Of good.
Right, those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. Those against? Lost. Now we need to go back to the original motion that was on, and Councillor Hubel, you wish to move it.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would like to add to number 1.
Can't add anything.
That has to be it.
Reverts back to the original.
I will,
more amendments.
this motion could be amended.
Sorry?
This motion can't be amended.
Just checking with the governance people.
Because it's a motion without notice, and the member of the region accepts the motion without notice.
Yeah. No, this is reverting back to the original motion. We need some governance. Or at least that's what we were told by the Chief Executive. Governance expert decision-making conference happening. We have a governance officer. For those at home, we're just pondering our next move and seeking governance expert advice.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right, we have a decision on this.
Sorry for the delay. So I sought clarification, and Councillor Hubel is entitled to move what's technically an alternate motion, which will be essentially the officer's motion with your alternate thoughts.
Through the Chair, thank you. Yes, so I'd like to move an alternate motion based on the officer's recommendation, but adding to 1. And if my wording is clunky here, forgive me. I'm very open to taking some guidance on how it should be phrased. But it should read something along the lines of, but allows all members to speak to any amendment, regardless of whether they've spoken to the motion itself.
We just need to seek some governance advice on this first. There are legislative rules that govern us, so we need to make sure we're doing it right.
That works?
Thank you. Yes. So my reason for adding this this change to what is a very good report, I thought, was I really strongly believe that when an amendment is being discussed and debated, the structure of the debate moves away from the motion itself, and it becomes a conversation about nuance, becomes a conversation about small details. That's, I think, you can argue or you can speak to or you can debate about as quite separate to speaking to the big picture itself. And I've certainly felt hamstrung several times in the last 2 years when I have spoken to a motion, as it appears at the time, and an amendment comes in, and I feel powerless in the chamber to contribute to the new direction the debate's going. I think when there's an amendment, the goalposts have changed. The issue itself changes, and we're talking about, you know, really what is it's a different thing that's being debated. So I'll leave it at that, and I hope we can get this through before too long.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Cornish, you wish to speak?
I will, and I'll be very quick. Yes, I'm happy to second this alternate motion. And I do see the irony that we've just bought ourselves some time. But I also think, though, that the discipline that Councillor Hubel was mentioning regarding only speaking about the amendment, so it would only be about speaking about the pledge, not about anything else. If we spoke about anything else apart from the pledge in that example, then we will get told off by the Mayor for not talking about the amendment and talking about the motion. So I'm more than happy to support this, and we keep the original 3.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm just mindful that when we did have workshops on this last year, that we actually had Norman Waterhouse lawyers take us through lots of detailed stuff, and I'm just feeling tonight we're kind of making it up, and I'm not comfortable where we're heading tonight without that guidance to make sure we're consistent with other councils and the law.
Can I assure you that our governance officer is fully aware of the legislative rules that apply. So I think we need to be confident that whatever has been discussed, that's why we've taken the time to have that discussion. So I feel more confident than perhaps you do right now.
So thank you. But my question then is specifically about this amendment here, about being able to speak to any amendment. Is that okay? Just wanted to check.
Through Madam Mayor. Yes, I've sought guidance, and it is absolutely permissible.
Right, thank you, that's good.
Now, Councillor Lemon.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment. So, I don't know which bit it will go in. What I want to amend is on page 70. So, Council, so my amendment would be, and I'll read it out for you, Rob, slowly. Council may resolve after 10:30 and prior to 11 that the meeting be further extended by no longer than an additional 30 minutes. And the meeting will conclude at 11 p.m. without further extension. So I guess my amendment, I want the meetings to finish at 10:30 because I think that in the last few times we've actually gone for an extension. People haven't voted for it to go to 11. This amendment makes flag fall 11. So if we absolutely must, we can extend our meeting to 11 p.m, but we cannot extend it from 11 to 11:30. 11 p.m. is the absolute deadline. So, and I think it's important that we do this. And I just remind you what happened at the last council meeting. The motion to extend the meeting to 11 o'clock failed. And Councillor Piggott, and he had 5 minutes in those days, managed to actually get his motion through in something like 3.5 minutes, and 2 other people spoke. So I actually think an 11 o'clock deadline will make us all efficient, and we will get through our business in an efficient manner. a 10:30 deadline, it'd make us even more efficient, but I don't feel the chamber will go for that. But I'm hoping what the chamber will do in future, when we look at, when just before 10:30 we go to vote to 11, the chamber will say no. So I hope you support this amendment, because I actually think it's important. I think for us to be making decisions, and let's not forget, with this new agenda, the decisions we're going to be making at 10:30, 11 and 11:30, well, not if this gets up, is on our motions of notice, not on the officers' reports. It strikes me, and I'll just make this comment, it strikes me as a bit odd that as elected members, the expectation is we'll bring motions on notice. But in this, we've actually given precedence to the non-elected members, the staff at Burnside, and we've just tacked ourselves at the end, if we've got a bit of time, to actually deal with any motions that we might bring, because we're ward councillors and our residents may want us to do some things. I'll just mention that. I'm not going to make a big deal of it.
Can I just say again, as I said to Councillor Cornish earlier, if there was a motion on notice that was absolutely essential to be moved earlier into the meeting, then it would be within the power of the Mayor to do so anyway. So be reassured that if that were to happen, that is a possibility. I seek a seconder to the... Oh, Councillor Davies, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I have been persuaded. I think Councillor Hubel's amendment is interesting. I would never have thought of it, and I think it's a great idea. So I'm swayed by that, and I'm certainly swayed and happy to support the fact that we do not continue a meeting till after 10:30. I mean, it's just crazy to go any later than that, and I think we have had that a bit of creep in recent times. So I think after many people working a whole day and then having a good 3-hour meeting, which we often have, 3.5 hour meeting, I think this is a very sound amendment, so I'm happy to support this.
The motion does say until 11. You said till 10:30. Councillor Hughes? No, I was just going to ask if Councillor Davies was seconding that as well. Yes, she was seconding. Is there anyone who wishes to speak, who is allowed to speak? Yes, Councillor Jones.
Can I just say this? I don't think this amendment makes sense, because it says council may resolve after 10:30 that the meeting be further extended by no longer than an additional 30 minutes. So we've already voted to extend to 11 before 10:30.
Through Madam Mayor,
Yes.
perhaps a recommendation to the mover would be that we simplify it and just say that the meeting go no longer than 11 p.m.
Is that all right with you, the mover? Okay. So that take out section 3, just reflect the meeting. The meeting will conclude at 11 p.m. Or by 11 p.m. provided an extension is made at 10:30. Sorry, Councillor Hughes.
can
Wait
I
a minute. Yes, Councillor Hughes.
ask a clarification? So 3.18.1,
Sorry, wait a minute. Councillor Jones, you need to turn your microphone off.
Don't I still have the floor?
Oh, sorry. You were
Thought you'd
just
stopped.
asked. I thought you'd finished. I apologise. So I'll
Again.
go back.
I will say
Councillor Jones.
I would prefer a drop dead time of 10:30, but 11 is better than 11:30, so I will vote for it.
Now, Councillor Hughes.
I just have a question. 3.18.1 says that it can only be extended in exceptional circumstances. So to me, just we've messed about all evening and run out of time. I just want to clarify, that's not exceptional circumstances, is it? Just want to clarify what that actually means.
What's up there now? Is that acceptable? So there's not a point 1 or point 2. You're happy with what's there now? Are you, Councillor Lemon?
Yes, although I prefer to have used the 3.18.1, which I actually don't have my glasses on, should use that as my amendment, but never mind, yes, that'll go.
Conclude 11 p.m. without any further extensions. That's it. That's it. That's the nature of what you are seeking. So, yeah, that's fine. I think it's quite clear in the provisions then that that is the time finish. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Then I will return, no, it's an amendment, so I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. So the amendment becomes the motion, and is everyone else is allowed to speak? You haven't spoken, Councillor Hughes, thank you.
I haven't spoken. Councillor Jones is a man of compromise. I can understand where he's coming from. Look, I almost think the whole point of, the whole point of these meetings is thinking about when you speak. And so for me, giving people the opportunity to speak again on an amendment, you've got to pick your time strategically, just like I'm talking now after you've gone through that amendment process, because I want to talk on the whole thing. So, it's fine to say I want to talk on everything, but I actually don't think we all need to have the opportunity to talk on everything, because it's now 8:30 and we haven't even finished this agenda item and we've still got a lot to go through. So personally, I think I'm going to not vote for this for the very reason that I don't think we need to add any more additional speaking time. We've just cut everyone back to the 3 minutes from the 4 minutes, but now we're going to add more opportunities to speak. I'm not voting for it, not because it doesn't have the pledge in there, but I will move that at a separate time, perhaps after seeking other people's independent feedback around that. So it's not for the reason that my amendment isn't in there, but I won't be voting for it because I don't think we need to be speaking on everything, including the amendments. Otherwise, we'll be here all night and we won't get any business done.
So anyone else who wishes to speak? I can put the motion. Then I shall put the motion. All those in favour? No, sorry, Councillor Hubel does have the right to speak, to summarise. Is that correct, Governance Officer? Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Yes, Councillor Hubel.
I will quickly sum up, Your Worship. Look, a wise man once said that the perfect is the enemy of the good, and that was my yes. And look, I think maybe we've made things a little bit gooder, while not quite perfect. So I'll leave it there.
All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? 7. We don't have that's not 8. Okay, those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the motion is lost. Right, we need to do a recount because the numbers just don't add up. Okay, so that's the simplest. Division has been called, so those who are in favour, please stand.
I'll declare I changed my mind.
You don't have to declare it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, and sorry, I call out the names. For the motion, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Davey, Councillor Piggott, Councillor Carbone, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Jones and Councillor Hubel. Those against, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Lemon, Councillor Dawes, and Councillor Henschke needs to be at the beginning of the list. The motion is 1. Sorry, I'm lost. Sorry. Oh, no, need 8. Yeah, need 8. So there's not 8. So therefore, we go back to square one.
Does the presiding officer not get to vote when it's the actual, you know, I think that's a bit...
Sit down, Peter.
We should actually change that.
No, apparently I don't get a vote at all unless there.
So,
The rules that you make.
so through Madam Mayor, we now revert back to the officer's recommendation.
So we revert back to the original officer's recommendation. Councillor Lemon.
I move the officer's recommendation with the inclusion of 3.18.1, page 70.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm really concerned about.
No, it was the other one. Wasn't 3.18.1? I put in 3.18.2 erroneously.
Could you just turn your microphone off?
So through Madam Mayor, just sought some clarification.
Listen, hopefully we've got
You would,
solutions.
whilst you can move an alternate motion, you can't add back in things that have already been lost.
That's not lost because I actually didn't have that. This is different.
Only the numbering.
No. The thing is different.
So just for clarity, what was the
I thought it was
part you were...
Council and committee meetings are to conclude no later than 10:30 PM unless the time period of any meeting is extended by up to 30 minutes by resolution in exceptional circumstances. That is not what I moved before.
We wouldn't have resolved this.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Cowley has a decision on this. Thank you.
So through Madam Mayor, to facilitate the intent of
Come
Councillor
on,
Lemon,
listen please, we need to
I'd
move on.
suggest that the alternate is that you seek to remove section 3.18.2.
Happy with that.
Okay?
I seek a seconder. Councillor Dawes, do you wish to speak? No. Councillor Carbone, do you wish to speak?
I move the motion be put.
Been seconded, so I seek a vote on that the motion be put. Those in favour, sorry. Those against. So it's carried. So I will put the motion as it stands up on the screen right now.
That wasn't an amendment, that was a new,
Those in favour of what's up on the screen now, those, hang on, I've got you counting. Chris, keep your hands up please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those against? I need to have the right number. That's only 11. Oh, that's right, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Division has been called, so please stand those who have, or those who wish to support the motion. And it is Councillor Henschke, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Piggott, Councillor Lemon, Councillor Carbone, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Dawes and Councillor Jones. Those against, Councillor Davey and Councillor Hubel. And the motion was carried at last. I'm going to suggest that we actually have a 10-minute break now. If that's not what you wish, then it's entirely up to you, but it seems kind of sensible after that we take a break. It's a little earlier than normal, but I seek decision from, yes. Those in favour of having the break now, please raise your hands. Only 4, 5. Right, so we continue then. All right, we only had 5. So we move to the draft report and draft annual report, which is Councillor Davey.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When do those, the next meeting, they come into effect? Or we've moved it, it's a resolution now?
Next meeting.
We'll do it down in 20 minutes.
Right.
I've got a time at the end.
The new code of practice comes in at the next meeting, which is on the, whatever, the November. Right, Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, that was monumental. I have an alternate motion to the one officer's recommendation, and that is that item 14.2 regarding the draft 2019-2020 annual report be deferred to the next council meeting on November the 14th, November the 24th, to allow the opportunity to address the following: inclusion of the CEO report, information about City of Burnside staff and organisation, wider and more accurate demographics to include reference to Burnside's mature age resident population, revision of photographs, the inclusion of the ERA water report. Sorry, if you could add that, Rob. And checking, proofreading for typos. I thank the administration and the staff for all the work they've done. It's a significant document. But, as everybody knows, the annual report is a statutory responsibility that we must do, and we have to complete that by the end of November of the financial year. It's also an opportunity to showcase our work at the City of Burnside and our commitment to our community. So it's a really important document, and I think it's really important that we get it right and present it really well. I acknowledge that the Audit Committee has endorsed a draft of the document already, as is stated, but I think that's been more to acknowledge the financial statements and all the financial work, because the Audit Committee didn't consider a Mayor's report, a CEO's report, some of the independent authorities' reports, and there were no photographs and a lot of other data in it. So that's the reason that I think I would recommend and ask for your support that we return it to the staff, allow proofreading to happen and the inclusion of those key components, because if I talk about the demographic data, on page 9 of the report, it cites the 2016 census, but selectively chooses some statistics for Burnside, and it talks about couples with young children, households with children, 15 to 17-year-olds in primary and secondary school, but there's absolutely no mention of the huge grouping of our community that are over 50 and mature age, and as we know, they're the majority of our community. So I think we need to include that in our statistics. There's also, as another example, on page 25, a photo of elected members, I think at the naturalisation ceremony in Australia Day. And unfortunately I just think we could probably find a better photo. One, Councillor Lemon, is facing the other way. So... I'm happy with that. Oh, I'm not.
It's like Abbey Road. It means Councillor Lemon's actually dead when that photo's
So sorry, I mean, this is very serious. So I just think we shouldn't endorse this tonight. I'd rather, and I don't like to, and I don't think it's good practice and good governance for us to say, okay, can we include this and let the staff complete it? I think this is a really important statutory document. I think that we really need to get it right and then bring it back to council. We've got an opportunity at the next council meeting before the deadline at the end of the month. So I hope you'll support this.
I can confirm that the deadline is okay, so we do have the opportunity to do it again. A seconder, please. Councillor Lemon, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. I do wish to speak, and for 5 minutes, if I must. I'm very happy to second this because I think it's very important. I echo Councillor Davies' comments. This is an essential document and it's really important that we get it right. I do have a question though. In the intervening time, the fortnight between now and the next council meeting, are elected members able to now get in touch with you with the issues that they've got with the annual report to have mistakes rectified and make comments whether they change the report or not? Is that applicable?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, certainly happy to get some feedback. I'll caution, I'm probably going to be hesitant to wholesale change, but if we're talking about the changes as alluded to by Councillor Davey, more than happy for that feedback.
Thank you. Well, I think we should all take the opportunity because we hadn't actually, well, it went to the Audit Committee, but this is the first time we've really seen it. And given that it's our annual report out of our council, I think that if there are any glaring issues there that we feel aren't well put out or ones that are missing, then given that we now have the opportunity to do that, I think we ought to take it. It's not actually stopping any deadlines. We still will meet our statutory obligations and at the end of it we'll have a better report. So I'm happy to second this.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Councillor Piggott and then Councillor Cup.
I've done this once before. 3 minutes. Again, I actually don't think there is I think we're overstating. It's an important document. I don't think it's an important marketing document. In actual fact, I've spoken here previously where I think, do we need to have as much in this document? Certainly when we printed thousands of them, it was quite an issue. It's a lovely document. I've got every one since I've been here, and it is really good. And this one is as well, actually. You can argue over photos. There are typos in there. The one I particularly liked is that I earned $72,000 last year. That was fabulous. I'd like not to change that one. I'm happy to take the money. Exactly right. It's an allowance. I spend it all, Madam Mayor. Inclusion of CEO report, that was obviously taken out for a reason, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't think there's anything here compelling
For clarity, the CEO report's never been in there.
Stop the clock. Oh, okay. I figured it had, so thank you for that. Look, I don't think there's any compelling reason. I think there are some typos in there, and I hope you will sort them out. There was a couple I put back there. Sarah sent me the 72,000 thing, which was good. And so I think we should get on with this one as well. There's been a lot of work done. We've got people to do this, and they've done it. The Audit Committee's ticked it off. It is primarily a financial document. The bits at the front are fluff, and lovely fluff they are. And if this does not get up, I will again put the officer's recommendation. I won't fiddle with it this time, and I'll seek your support of it. 115.
Councillor Carbone.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Look, I think I'm going to echo some of the comments that Councillor Piggott has raised tonight. And maybe I'm being a bit harsh on this document, but I really don't know how many residents even read this document, and we're giving it a lot of time. And I suppose my question to you, Your Worship, is as our leader in our community and of this council, I really do hate things done by a committee. And I'm just wondering, you as Mayor, are you happy with the document?
Look, I think generally the document's fine, and particularly all the financials, as Councillor Lemon said, they were all approved by the Audit Committee. And there were some reports that hadn't been written at the point it went to the Audit Committee, but Councillor Davies asked for an extra information to go in there. I think that I'm sure that Chris and the staff who will finalise the document, we put faith and trust in them doing it correctly. I mean, I would like my name spelt correctly, so that would be a good one too.
And my follow-up question, Your Worship, is to our CEO, who is representing all the staff, who have put a lot of work into this. Are you happy with the document as it is now?
Well, I think I'll say, I want to acknowledge the amount of work the staff have put into this document. They've done a massive amount of work, so I want to thank them for that. There's one tweak that I really want to make with it, and that is I do want to include a CEO statement. It hasn't been done in the past, but I generally do think it's appropriate. But that's the only change.
So given that the Mayor and the CEO are happy with the document, and that given that very few people are probably going to read this document, I'm happy with that. So I'll be voting against this motion.
I have to say, I am encouraged if any of you find anything that under the slip rule that you see is obvious, that ought to get through regardless, be sent to Chris regardless anyway. Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question relates to the Era Water report and the delay in receiving it. Is there a reason for that, and are they aware of their statutory responsibilities? Thank you.
The short answer is they are. The delay is totally in their hands. They haven't provided it to us in a timely fashion, but we're chasing it up as hard as we can to get the document so we can include it.
Just to follow up, Your Worship, will this delay allow us to put pressure on them to meet the deadline and give them a bit of a jolt?
Through Madam Mayor, Karishma, are we aware of Era Water's indicative timelines to get it to us?
Thank you, Chris. Through the Mayor, we are not. We have asked, but we haven't heard back yet.
And Councillor Turnbull, you're next, and Councillor Jones.
Well, my question was the same as Councillor Davies exactly. Why wasn't the Era Water included? Now I know. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Jones. We did say something similar at the Audit Committee. Councillor Cornish? Oh, do you wish?
Madam Mayor, I think we just need to answer that question. Might hand over to Karishma for that clarification.
Through the Mayor, the accounts have been audited, Era Water's accounts. I believe the numbers are not going to change, so the consolidated accounts have been prepared with the audited accounts from Era Water. I believe they are just working on the annual report itself, so there are some changes that have been requested. So I'm not expecting the numbers to change.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm sorry if I ignored that or did injustice to that. Okay, Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few questions, if I can, about the statutory responsibilities regarding the annual report. Is it the chamber that actually has to vote and agree to the final document?
Through Madam Mayor, Karishma.
Through the Mayor, I did miss a little bit of the question, but I think it is whether the council need to adopt the annual report.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yeah. Can I ask, where does the annual report have to be tabled in Parliament or sent to the parliamentary committees and libraries to be held for ever and a day for reference 100 years from now?
Through the Mayor, yes, that is correct. A copy needs to be sent to the library and the Parliament by 31st of December. But keeping in mind, there is some printing timing we require as well.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then I actually will vote for this motion as it stands, because if it is an important document that's got my name to it that I'm voting for, I want to make sure that it's as accurate as it possibly can be with all the additions that the CEO and the Mayor and other people have mentioned. So I'm sorry, guys, if you have to bring it back to the chamber, but I'd prefer it that way. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Piggott, question?
Just on this motion, revision of photographs. I mean, it's a collection of. My question is it clear to administration what that means? I think typos is pretty clear, as is the Era Water report. Revision of photographs, are we clear what that means? And is it open to the rest of us to have a crack at the photos as well?
Through Madam Mayor, what I'm taking away from the conversation this evening is there's one photograph that I'm going to amend. The one that's been pointed out. I would be hopeful that we don't have a debate over this document for the sake of the photographs.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask a question? Right, then I will go return to Councillor.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thank you everyone for your input. We have an opportunity to refine this document. It's a really important statutory document that's had a lot of work done to get it to this stage. It just needs a little bit more work, certainly with the inclusion of two more key documents, the CEO's statement and the Era Water. And because I think it's really important that we have Era Water report in our annual report for all the reasons that we know. It's one of our authorities that we've set up. That's probably not the right terminology, but it's a very important body that we are members of. I think we can refine the typos, add the more wider demographics to truly represent our community. Revise that photograph on page 25 and remove the typos and do the checking. I think I don't want my name to go to anything that's not complete and accurate, and I think we've got a few more days to refine this and get it totally looking 100%, so that in 50 years' time we can, and our grandchildren can be proud of it. Contrary to what some people have said tonight, my constituents read it. I don't know about yours, but I've been asked about what things that are in the annual report. So hopefully you'll support this and we can review it again in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Those in favour? Those against? Motion was carried. Just aware that there's some staff that could leave before we have the break. So I'm wondering if we can, with your consent, we do 14.3 and 14.6. Hopefully they won't be long, and then we have... Oh, community survey could be a long one? Okay. So do 14.3 and before we have a break. Is that acceptable? That means at least two staff can leave. All right, so that's Councillor Davey, 14.3.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to move in accordance with the officer's recommendation. I just had a query about council savings, and as has been outlined at paragraph 14 in terms of our financial performance, an operating surplus of 1.5 million. Does that mean that we can fill all the positions that are now vacant on council? Are we in a position to now move towards filling the vacant positions?
Through Madam Mayor, you can't really look at it in that fashion. What I would like to do, because I understand the positions or the vacant positions are very important to council, I'd actually like to present with council my thoughts about the structure and our resource needs going forward before we run headlong and just fill positions because we have the finances. So if I could ask council's indulgence to bear with me, perhaps for another, before Christmas, I'd like to talk to you about my thoughts about our resource requirements going forward as an organisation. Thank you.
Do you wish to say anything further? Otherwise I'll seek a second.
No, I'm happy with that clarification. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Dawes. So anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, Councillor Davey, do you wish to say anything further? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now suggest that we have a 10-minute break. You are happy to move that, Councillor Hughes, seconded Councillor Davey. All those in favour? We restart at 5 minutes past 9. This is the one I was suggesting that we perhaps go into informal session, but we have to move the motion and second it first, don't we? Well, that's what I'm going to find out. Yeah. Yeah. We have a mover in Councillor Davey. Can I seek a seconder? Even though Councillor Davey, no, let her speak. But okay, we've got a seconder.
But I have a very small amendment.
Okay.
Before.
All right, let's do that first.
Yes. At 3.
No, we may not need it. Yeah.
I want the last part deleted, acknowledging the impact on existing and future budgets, so that 3 just becomes support for more shrubs and understory plantings in parks and council infrastructure to support habitat and bird life, full stop. Because none of the other questions have any proviso on them about acknowledging the impact on budgets. So why should it just be on one and not the other 3? So, did you?
Through Madam Mayor, I just want to provide some input into that thought about the others not relying on budgets. If you notice, the wording of the recommendation is that we'll use these points as guidance in developing the questions, because I think it's important that we phrase these questions in an informed way to our residents, in a fair way, but in an informed way. So happy to amend the wording in the motion, but I just want to be clear that all 3 of those questions will be formed to provide an informed question, so not just an open-ended, would you like more of X? They need to be contextual so that the resident can make an informed decision. So all 3 will have some sort of context on them. Thank you.
Another example, of course, is ERA approach. Now, a lot of our community wouldn't even know what ERA was in terms of the ERA councils. And what we're looking at is there's a difference, obviously, between Prospect and Unley and the rest, the other 3. So, obviously, these would all need to be some information provided before the question is then posed.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that clarification, but I just think it's important to not have that qualification on that one question, whereas it wasn't on the others. So this is a very important survey. As we always are quoted, it is used for planning and all sorts of resource allocation, and it's important that we get a feel for what our community wants. So I'm happy to move that those 3 questions be added to the mix. Thank you.
And Councillor Hubel, you happy to support it? Councillor Jones, you had your hand up as possibly seconding then?
I thought it was seconding going into informal session.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I'm seeking a seconder for this motion as it now stands. Councillor Hughes, thank you. Do you wish to speak?
I'll speak briefly. I think this is a good... It's a good cross-section of questions, I think, that we could ask the community. I'm certainly an advocate for cycling. I think I use cycling routes into work, might not tomorrow if this weather continues, but I think it's important to look at it holistically, and I think as a cyclist within the city of Burnside, you'll quite often pull up somewhere and a bike path will end, and you're at the mercy of vehicles. So I certainly think understanding what community's opinion on that would be of value and help us make decisions. In terms of point 2, this is something that I've been speaking with the administration about over the last few months, and I think we've got an opportunity to think about how we consult with members of the community. It won't be for everyone, but personally, if I could have the opportunity to get a text message when something comes out in my street that I could click on a link and respond, I would probably be more inclined than wandering down to the post box to put something in the mail. And I think based on the amount of money that we spend on consultation, there's an opportunity to reduce our footprint, but also reduced ongoing costs. So I think there'd be an opportunity to invest in something, but I think really understanding whether the community have an interest in that would be of value before we go and invest in something like that. And the final point, I think obviously we've had a lot of debate around the chamber around those shrubs and understory plantings over the last year, so I'd certainly be happy to get the community's view on that and see whether that is something that is important and whether we should be investing more money in. So I'm certainly happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Henschke, and then Councillor...
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the item 3 there about plantings and council infrastructure, I've got a question. Would we be able to, there's an interface obviously in a lot of places with dip tie roads and our islands. For example, along Fullerton Road, there is a traffic island that runs the full length of Fullerton Road pretty much, and that's council property, and it's quite bare. Would this shrubs and understory plantings question make residents aware that in fact that is council land, and perhaps we talk about council infrastructure and an interface with dip tie roads, because really dip tie roads and council infrastructure starts blurring. People don't know which is which necessarily on a day-to-day basis.
Through Madam Mayor, I think unfortunately, because of the nature of the survey and how we conduct it, we have to be careful we don't overload the participants with too much information. And I think the context of these questions is to seek broad guidance. So I probably wouldn't be recommending we go into that detail, but simply asking our residents their thoughts. And you oppose it on council land. So unfortunately, I think our ability will be limited to canvass that in the survey question.
Thank you. Thank you. And it follows on with what the CEO just said. I'm very pleased to to support this officer's recommendation. These questions now will be formulated properly by professional people, because what we don't want is a yes/no answer, because that tells us nothing. And the other thing we don't want is to actually get in touch with 800 people and say, well, what's your opinion on this? And we've got 800 opinions. That's not going to help us either. So getting a broad guidance is the way to go. But I just want to take this opportunity, because I've actually got the red light on, to say there's plenty of places we've already got for understory planting before we start looking at roads and traffic islands. And I actually think we need to make some sort of policy decision about that, because it's come up again and again and again, and we need to make sure that we're very aware that traffic islands and roundabouts are primarily and predominantly traffic control devices, and you cannot stick plantings on that, a roundabout for instance, that then doesn't allow motorists to see through. We shouldn't even be considering that sort of thing. So if we're going to go down that path, I mean, at some stage I think we need to look at it as a workshop or a motion on notice or something else, because I feel quite strongly that traffic islands and roundabouts are there for road safety, not there for beautification. So I'll just make that point.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Jones.
I think these questions are very unexciting, frankly. Seeking of community opinion on council advocacy for activating cycling. I mean, who is possibly going to object to that? Support for electronic consultation to opt out of consultation. Well, you can already opt out of rates notices, so the principle is there. Why would there be any... Who's going to say, oh no, I couldn't possibly allow people to opt out of consultation? Support for more shrubs and understory planting. Who is possibly going to be opposed to that? I mean, we're just asking a whole load of questions we already know the answer to. Whereas, you know, not to blow my own trumpet, but I suggested the 25% sporting club support is something that we really don't know what the community feels, and it would be worth asking them, because they might say, well, you own the assets, you should pay 100% or 50%. And we don't know, and I think that's a real multi-million-dollar question that we would get some real value from asking the community. I proposed near a water question as well, because I think they're going to run out of money next year, and we're going to have to make a difficult decision about whether we put more money in. And if we do put more money in, is that going to be a, well, guys, we'll give you I don't know, $2 million, but that's it. You know, there'll be, this is the last time. Would the community support that? Do they say, nah, enough's enough? Would they say, we're saving the world, council. You can put in $1 million a year forever. We don't care because you're saving the world. But these are the kind of big ticket items that getting some community guidance on would add some real value. And I don't think these three questions are nice enough, but I think we know the answer and they're not adding any value to me. If you put them all in front of me in a motion, I'd cheerfully vote for all of them and I wouldn't need to consult with anyone. So I think we should think again.
CEO wishes to make a statement.
I'm not sure if I need to make one, but I will just put a little comment if I may. I think you raised the era water question that was under consideration, and I was very deliberate in not perhaps recommending that because I think it's a very complex matter that to get an informed comment from the community without providing a plethora of data is unfair, and that really, to my mind, is a decision of this council. So that was the reason why some of those matters I haven't recommended them to you, because I think it's unfair to seek the input from the community without an immense amount of information. That was some of the thoughts. But I would reinforce that these questions won't be asked open-ended, because if they were open-ended, I agree with you, everyone would say yes, but they all need some context around them for people to understand what it would mean if we went ahead with these three things. So they will have more context than you see here right now.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Dawes.
The first thing, I'm very pleased with council because we have 11 suggested questions or issues. Last year we had 2 or 3 and then we've been allowed adding about 8 or 9 later, so we've done better this year. And I do understand Councillor Jones' point. You know, I had 13.1, you know, because we've done a pump track trial, you know, have people's attitudes changed about the Wirral Park, because that was quite a divisive issue. But the council took the decision back in August of last year to try a pump track trial and see what would happen thereafter. Otherwise, what I can see happening is next year we will again have a meeting, we'll have both sides in the chamber giving their points of view. So it would be good to have an independent survey being done. So, you know, I'd be supportive of 30.1, but I do like 1, 2 and 3 in the motion as well, but we can't have more than 3. And the same thing with road closures and slow points and so forth. I think you find that everybody that lives, particularly in Councillor Cornish and Councillor Henskey's suburbs, was saying we probably need some or we don't need some or whatever, but the same in our ward, I'm sure. But I'll just, because Councillor Jones was talking about his, I thought I'd talk about mine, 13.1, because I can sense that is going to be an issue we'll have to decide upon next year. We do need some independent views. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Cornish.
Thank you. It's in relation to obviously the activating cycling. We had a deputation tonight and some comments obviously made about it being sort of incorporated more broadly into our transport plan or a traffic plan that we're currently undertaking. Is that the intention if the feedback comes back quite supportive from this? Just sort of trying to couch some of the comments that were made during the deputation.
Through Madam Mayor, certainly I believe that is the case. In fact, I was looking at the awarding of the tender to the party that we're looking to do the preliminary work with this overarching strategy, and certainly they've identified as one component of that work. We'll look at cycling and cycling routes as part of that. So yes.
Anyone else wishing to speak or ask a question? If not, I will go back to Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll just briefly sum up. Thank you for your input. Yeah, this isn't, I take on board what Councillor Jones' comments are, but this is local. I think it's intended to be local issues that our community feels that they can have some say and ownership of, and for planning and those sort of issues. So I think we've got a reasonable balance. I think it'll be interesting to see what the survey comes up with. We'll get a full report, but I think they're really three, really good issues that we'll get some good feedback on. So hopefully you'll support this. Thank you.
Those in favour? Those against? Carry. Next one is Councillor Carbone, 14.7. Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to say, the storm is for effect, by the way, but I'd like to say how delighted I am and honoured I am with the report that we have before us and the officer's recommendations. I'd like to thank the staff, particularly Barry and Chris, who I know firsthand have put in a lot of work into this, a lot of work in terms of investigating the issue, speaking to all the stakeholders, and coming up with a way that really does rectify the situation in a very fair and logical approach. This is a very important matter, particularly for two wards in this council, that being this ward and the Rose Park and Dulwich ward, because we do have hundreds of residents that, quite frankly, I don't think are getting a good deal out of their rates. And it's no one's fault. It's probably caught us off guard a little bit because this really only has come about in the last decade. We've gone from essentially no apartments to quite a few in, generally speaking, a short period of time. So it's no one's fault, but I think we are caught out. But we are aware of it now, and we are rectifying the situation. This report and its recommendations strikes at the very heart of council showing fairness, equality and balance across all of our ratepayers. Not just some, every single ratepayer. Right now, we have 329 ratepayers, and that of course is going to only grow. But right now we have 329 ratepayers who pay on full, on time, and they don't receive a service that they are duly entitled to receive. Rubbish collection is a core service. This is not a luxury. This is not optional. This is a core service that every council in the country provides. And not only do they not get this service, but to, kind of rub salt into the wound, they have to pay somebody else to do that service. That's in no way, shape or form is right, and in no way, shape or form is it fair. And this report rectifies that situation. It encourages organics, it encourages people who sit on the strata committee to invest funds, a lot of money, into retrofitting their chute systems. This report and its recommendations, quite frankly, is the right thing to do. It is the best thing to do, and it is the fairest thing to do.
Councillor Lemon, do you wish to second?
I do, thank you very much. I echo many of those statements. This is a brilliant piece of work, and I happen to know for a fact that our CEO had a lot to do with this in terms of looking at the percentages and how this could be calculated to be fair to all residents. And what I particularly like about this is this actually gives a solution to residents who have complained that they're not getting their fair share of the rates. It gives a solution that does not compromise this council at all in terms of its organic waste collection, in terms of its looking at reducing waste to landfill, in terms of not having food waste in red bins. It actually deals with the issue at hand, does what it can do and provides a degree of equity so that the residents in apartments are not subsidising other ratepayers in their rubbish collection. But more importantly for me, what this does is ensure that the ratepayers with 3 bins are not subsidising residents in apartments. It provides a blueprint for our future dealings with apartment blocks, because we now have a formula to calculate what that actually is. We now are able to deal with those issues. We don't have a lot of issues like this, and as Councillor Carboni said, this ward is actually Eastwood and Glenunga, and the other ward is for actually Toorak Gardens, Rose Park and Toorak Gardens. And what we've got is 140 Air apartments. What we've got is 68 Queen Victoria apartments. And then we're going to have apartments in Glenside. At the moment, what we've got in Glenside is townhouses, and they all have 3 bins as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I suspect they've all got 3 bins. But once apartments start getting built, perhaps the builders of that will ensure that the rubbish that is actually the rubbish chutes from different apartments will then fit in with accepted practice now, which is that we reduce our waste to landfill. So I'm really pleased about that. I'm pleased about how this has come out. I'm pleased that nobody's disadvantaged and no one is unduly advantaged in this. And I'm pleased that we've got a way forward for when we do get more apartments in this city. And we can, to a degree, control how that waste is managed, which we can't right now. We cannot control it because private contractors deal with apartment blocks. And now what we're saying to private contractors is design your apartments so that waste management is up to 21st century standards, and the people that buy those apartments can feel good about not contributing to excessive landfill. The other thing that's really good about this particular report is that staff will be dealing with the contractors that are actually dealing with waste. So with Air Apartments, they're not going to have to deal with 140 residents and do their rates differently. What they'll deal with is the contractors that are actually collecting the rubbish, and the strata people can do what they do between themselves and we won't get involved in that. I think it's brilliant, and I thank you for doing it, and I'm very happy to support it.
Councillor Hughes.
I just have a question, and I apologise for not having thought of this earlier to ask of the administration, but I was wondering, these percentages that have been set, I'm wondering if there are significant changes to things like our waste levy, whether those percentages would change to reflect those costs changing in the future?
The answer is yes, by virtue of the fact that we've based these percentages off the percentage of our overall waste management costs to the council. So should our overall waste management costs to council increase, that change will be reflected through, and conversely, if there's a decrease.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to propose an amendment, if I may, which I would have sent through. Thank you. The mover and seconder mentioned equity quite a bit, and granted the proportion of multi-dwelling places are more likely to be on the inner city rim, I would suggest. I do remember when this came into the chamber in July that equity was raised there, and I raised the issue of commercial properties and commercial businesses having access to something similar. I was led to believe it was going to be in the report, but it's my faux pas for not ensuring that it was in the original motion. So I would like to make an amendment to request that we actually look at reviewing this system and this proposed system and implementing it for commercial residents. So it's not just 2 wards that would benefit, it's all wards. Now, I've asked the administration they don't really know the number of businesses that currently use our 3-bin system, and a lot do. But there are probably a number of businesses that do have private contractors. And, you know, if it's environmental benefits that we're seeking, if it's equity for all rate payers, they pay the same amount of rates as a residential property, and they're having to pay for their garbage to be picked up by a private contractor. There is equity concerns there. So I think that we need to extend this proposal into potentially that cohort of our community that do pay rates and don't get access to this service. So I just seek a report to see whether or not that's suitable, and we could do it. So that's my amendment going forward. I hope someone seconds it.
I seek a seconder. I noticed you had your hand up, Councillor Turnbull. Were you wanting to second this motion or just speak? Okay, so I need a seconder. Councillor Davey?
I'm happy to second this motion. While I agree with everything that's been said, one of the issues is equitable application of our waste management, and with the changes to our lifestyle in Burnside, there are quite a few complexes of apartments, quite apart from the high-rise ones that are specifically mentioned in this. There's aged care facilities, there's places like on Stattenborough, and so I think it's timely that we perhaps consider all of these issues in the 2-tiered waste management system, so as well as our business cohort. So I think this would be very worthwhile.
Councillor Turnbull, are you wishing to speak on this amended motion? Okay. Councillor Henschke, then Councillor Piggott.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I would just like to ask firstly a question. Commercial properties, we've heard residential properties. Can we just a question to Councillor Cornish through the chair, that we are also including retirement villages? Yes.
Will that have to be through the chair?
Through the chair?
Through Madam Mayor, I might refer that question to Phil, Dr. Phil, just to give us clarity on what we've already considered as part of the MUD's consideration.
Through the chair, retirement villages aren't covered in the current report, but they are currently served by East Waste Services. So if we were to consider them as as commercial properties, then I think we'd find that they wouldn't be covered by a rebate or a contribution to their waste services.
They currently do get all 3 bins. I'm
Yeah.
aware of Pineview and Victoria Grove and on Stattenborough all having, because I've seen them lined up. Oh, it's certainly the ones on Stattenborough all lined up.
Yeah. So through Madam Mayor, I was glad Dr. Phil clarified for me. In my mind, I was clear that we had turned our mind, barring commercial, to almost every other waste collection that occurs within the city of Burnside, as to were we charging and not able to provide a service. And so we're comfortable we are providing a service through East Waste to our retirement villages.
And may I ask another question, please, through the chair? Did the administration consider practices of other councils, for example, Moorlands Council in Victoria, that is one council that is quite innovative in its bin waste management charges, where I understand they charge, you can choose, as a resident, you can choose a $200 bin or a $1,000 bin a year. And my question leads to me to speaking to this motion next, because I don't think we're giving all our residents a choice with this current system.
Through Madam Mayor, I think it's fair to say the Victorian model is different to the South Australian model in terms of legislation and how they require the treatment of waste charges to their community. At the minute in Victoria, the waste charges are separated from your rates bill, as in they're a separate charge, and you are charged almost for your service you receive. I think going forward, it's something we will probably look at as a council. I think this is a prudent first step, and then looking forward into the future about making waste a more dedicated user-pay system is the way Victoria's gone about it. And I think that's probably where we'll go in the future, but I think we're not quite ready yet, and our legislation isn't supporting us just at this point in time.
Thank you. Can I speak briefly? Yep, so that's why I'm not comfortable with just tweaking a bit of the current system. I think we have to stop and assess the whole system and go forward with a developed full strategy. I just feel that it doesn't quite pass the pub test. I have spoken to residents and I'm getting a big strong reaction. I don't like it because, oh, what about us, So I'm putting that to the floor of the chamber tonight.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just seek a bit of clarity on what you mean it doesn't pass the pub test?
Thank you for asking. The residents feel that, they're getting a rate reduction and we're not, and we're not getting the opportunity to have less council rates. So we're making decisions. Sorry, we're making decisions. I'll be clearer. We're making decisions tonight to give away some money to these organisations, these strata managers, strata corporations, and other parts of our community haven't got that opportunity.
I think I need to clarify, Madam Mayor, to be very clear for the council, that with our waste service provision, we provide a waste pickup service to all of our community, apart from these apartment buildings. So we are in effect levying a rate, knowing we cannot provide a service. That's the difference. Every other ratepayer in the city of Burnside receives a waste collection service. So I don't think it's a fair categorisation to call it not passing the pub test. I'm sorry.
Councillor Piggott. That was all that I have on the amended motion. So I know that I'm holding you off there. Councillor Carbone, you wish to ask a question?
Yeah, just so we're very clear on this amended motion. So I don't want one to jeopardise the other. So if this motion goes ahead, we are going ahead with the officer's recommendations. And then later on, we're going to have a review on commercial properties. So they're not delayed because of the other one, are they?
But that's what I read, because this motion here is the same as the officers, with the addition of the commercial investigation. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the amendment? Otherwise, I will put the amendment. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Those against? 6-5. So it's carried. Sorry, the amendment becomes the motion. And so, next point. Amendment becomes a motion. Anyone else wishes to speak? So therefore, Councillor Turnbull wishes to speak, and Councillor Hubel, and Councillor Hughes.
Right. You right? Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment too, but mine comes in after, like before the one about the commercial, because it really deals with the residential apartments. My amendment is that council approach the management of residential apartments which are not eligible for the Tier 1 rebates because of the age and structure of the building to enable more efficient recycling and waste management. No.
They're all Tier 2, all three.
No, can't do it.
Through Madam Mayor, I think it's a redundant motion because we don't have any.
Oh, okay.
That would fall under that category.
Can I still speak to it?
Oh, certainly.
I really like this report, so it's the best one in 2 years. instead of saying, no, too hard, it gives us sensible and practical options for residential apartments. But I find that there is a group that's disadvantaged, and they're the ones in the older apartments who bought in. They didn't know about recycling and waste management in those days. It was chuck it down the chute, which is that's what happens in a lot of places. And so they're disadvantaged because unless they are eco-warriors and march off to their manager and demand to have it all done, they're not going to get anywhere. So I think that perhaps that would have been good if the council could work with those Tier 2 people, the managers of the Tier 2 apartments, and so tell them what they are missing out on, what they can do, etc., and go from there. And also looking ahead at the planning approval for future apartments, should we not be requiring a process for segregating the compostable waste as part of the planning application, an approval dependent on the strategy being incorporated, especially as we're promoting all this in our council area, but not to them. And refer to, page 245 of the East Waste report, tells you how many people are doing this, that and the other, and a lot of them aren't. So that's my opinion, that we need to put that into the planning and also give the Tier 2 residential apartments a bit of a go as well.
If I may, Madam Mayor, thank you for your thoughts, and I'm pleased to say that I'll deal with the second part first. So if I can use Glenside Apartments as an example, in their planning and their investment, they've actually incorporated organics diversion in their chutes. So they've invested ahead, so they have the ability to divert organics right now. So they're categorised as Tier 1. And certainly going forward, I'm under no doubt that our team will be engaged with the body corporates of the Tier 2s to have a dialogue about how we can get them to Tier 1 status. So
Okay,
we will be actively working with them, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Hubel was next, and then Councillor Hughes. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say this is a great report. Thank you. We did ask for some information back in July or whenever it was about how we can amend things and change things and do things a bit differently, particularly because of environmental focus that we're having at the moment, and administration, you have delivered and given us what I think is a really, really good, really fair, quite, innovative from what I can tell, approach, and I hope this gets up.
Next to speak is Councillor Hughes.
I'm still undecided on this because I am almost a believer that your rates are essentially a tax, and that money gets spent on various things throughout the community that you may or may not use, and I appreciate they don't have access to this, so potentially that's a different argument altogether. But I don't have access to go, well, maybe I do, to the men's shed. I don't have access, I can go to the shed, but I may not necessarily want to hang out with a bunch of elderly men. Bad example. But perhaps there could also, I don't use other things within the council. Will I have access to a rebate? And to me, the fact that we've just this evening added commercial properties to this, I think, we've added to get a report on that. And I think this has the potential to open a floodgate of all of, as Councillor Henschke said, around people questioning what is fair and equitable. And in my mind, I appreciate the effort that's gone into this report, and I can see the value in what we're trying to do and trying to encourage that that waste management, essentially, to encourage people to behave responsibly. I'm certainly not against that, but it doesn't quite sit in my mind around. It comes down to this user pay system that the CEO has spoken about, and in my mind, I'm not sure that this is one step that won't lead to 8 more. And I know that speaking with Councillor Carbone raised, don't think about the what if, but I can't in my mind not think about the what if, because even this evening we've had one what if added to the motion. So look, I think in terms of the scheme and the value of things, we pay for things in this community that we may not have access to or we may not utilise. We may have people that don't go to the pool, and essentially we're subsidising that for people who live outside the city of Burnside. So in my mind, I'm not sure that equality is perhaps the right argument. Maybe it's just the right thing to do as opposed to equality. So there's still time to convince me and get me over the line. I haven't fully made up my mind. You've got another however many minutes, and for another 45 if we keep debating this. But, you know, in my mind, I see it as opening the floodgates to a user pay system, and I think if we're going to do that, we need to look at the entire council and the way we structure our rates, rather than looking at one issue of waste management.
Councillor Piggott.
Question first. Can I just clarify on Councillor Turnbull's motion that she was going to run when was asked about the tier 2? The fact is there are tier 2 apartment blocks in Burnside, isn't there? There are blocks that we need to work with to improve. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. The issue around equity, I think, is tricky. There is no question about that. We don't all access the same level of services depending on how we live, in actual fact. So I think equity is a tough argument. It does lead to a whole litany, I suspect, of requests coming out of precedent. I'm not sure whether Councillor Cornish was making trouble by throwing commercial properties in, but I, for one, would not be keen to entertain rebating 4.5% of rates back to commercial properties. So I think that equity issue is a problem. I do think, though, that this has something going for it, and that is the fact that it will encourage, I think, buildings, certainly new buildings, to pick up the fact that they need a three-way waste system. And I think it probably will encourage, although it's not a lot of money probably compared to what retrofitting a third of when we did a tour of Glenside, they had a relatively elaborate system where you had to switch between two types of rubbish to go down the one chute. They still only had 2 chutes, and I guess any existing buildings with 2 chutes have to put the similar sort of apparatus in. I suspect the 3 or 4 grand that's being rebated from Burnside won't touch the surface there. However, we can only try, and I do feel that it is something that does stack up on environmental grounds where we are trying to lead perhaps the future of apartments, where they do sort out three chutes, 3 bins, and don't have food waste primarily go to landfill. So I do support it.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Dawes?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Councillor Piggott and Councillor Hughes said is fair and reasonable. I think what Councillor Turnbull was trying to say was that for tier 2 apartments, there's only 1 left. Is that what we're saying? I think that's what the CEO was saying. At the moment, they can put their green waste into the red bin. That's what it means at the moment. And yet we've been educating all our ratepayers to put their green waste in the green bin, you know, from food scraps, etc. So we have tier 1. I support tier 1, 3 separate streams. I went to the Cedar Woods tour and I was very impressed with what they do. I believe that we can incentivise, that's the word, tier 2 to become tier 1 through retrofitting. I think the CEO might have used that word. So to me it comes down to, and Councillor Carbone said it, fair and reasonable. What is fair and reasonable? And we're going to have a balanced argument here. So I'm guessing what it's saying is that we are encouraging tier 2 to have organic compost recycling, if that's the right word. But I'm hoping what doesn't happen is that one of these tier 2 stays what they're doing at the moment, and even though we're going to give them a 2.25% rebate, they still don't do anything. So I'm actually saying to administration, you know, I'd really want you to be very, very proactive here. So we have got a bit of a compromise here. We have between tier 1 and tier 2. And if we had a resident that was putting all their green waste in the red bin, then East Waste would not be happy. they would not be happy, right? Now, East Waste not picking up their rubbish, but it's still a matter of principle for me. The other point I want to make is paragraph 40. I've already discussed this with administration, Michelle in particular, that we are going to give the rebates to the building managers. I want to make sure that the building managers indicate that that rebate hasn't come from the building manager, it come from the council. I've been assured that will be the case. There will be a letter sent, etc., so that they don't think that it's because of their good management that they have reduced their strata title fees. So I am aware that we haven't got the perfect world here, but I'm hoping it's going to lead to better green waste management.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'd just like to make a comment. While you fear the issues about equity, we could also argue from the other perspective, and that is those of us who live in the hills who pay for an extra 2 green bins every fortnight, we are disadvantaged. I don't have that as an issue. The issue for me is it's about avoiding waste, the green waste going to landfill. And that, I think, is what we need to consider uppermost in all decisions that we make. The cost of that waste levy is exorbitant. State government hit us hard last year with those increases, and whatever we can do, we should be doing to reduce the amount of waste, of inappropriate waste, going to landfill. So I just wanted to make that comment. Seek to return to Councillor Cubbo.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to say I am truly humbled tonight that this has been an issue that's been a long time coming, and I'm grateful for your support tonight. I really am. I'm even more grateful of the work that Barry and Chris have put in. I know this has been a lot, and I'm very, very grateful to that. I'm also grateful to the many, many residents who have been affected by this, who have been in contact with me, and including the Strata Committee, which, by the way, is owned by residents. They are deeply in support of this, and as far as jumping tiers and so forth, they see this as a true incentive to be the best, because they know that they will go from a 2.25 to a 4. They know that. They can see it. They can see the dollar signs, and they can work out the difference, and they can get quotes on retrofitting. This is something they can touch, feel, and smell. It is real. In terms of opening the floodgates, I think that's an unfortunate argument. We are talking about hypothetical what-ifs that will never come. I urge those who are still on the fence not to cloud this important issue with something that just may never happen. Don't do that. Don't think that. Don't compare this with, well, I can't attend the shed. That's a choice. This is something that is a core service. And so that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. It does address a fundamental core belief in our system that we are all equal.
Right, I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. We'll just
Street naming.
Yes, we'll skip across the road from your apartments.
Yes, we're still in Glenside.
Skip along the laneways, some of them unnamed, of Glenside.
Just before you do talk to the motion, the Cedar Woods suggested tea tree spelt T, capital T-E-A hyphen T-R-R-E. In our officer's recommendation, they have it spelt incorrectly.
I noticed that.
So were you going to point that out as well?
I did notice that.
Okay. I just wanted to point it out before we began.
Thank you.
And hope that you're still happy with it.
So, we're still skipping along these unnamed roads, And the roads that we're not skipping along are named Wattle, Acacia and Hoon, which is great. What we are skipping along now is Lamandra, Daniela, Dianella and Tea Tree, possibly with a hyphen. Now, whilst we don't have a Wisteria Lane yet, or even a Peony Lane, these are street names, botanical street names, that were actually submitted to Cedar Woods, and they're happy with them, by our staff. Both tea tree, all three are actually native species of this area. All three are easy to spell. I'm not sure why tea tree doesn't actually have a hyphen in it, and it may well be that it's easy to put that on and you don't want a hyphen in a street sign.
Thank you, Mayor. No, the hyphen's okay in the street sign. It's to do with filling out forms, and particularly online forms. The residents have asked that it's not hyphenated.
Brilliant. So we've actually done a little community consultation as well. That is brilliant. So what we've got are three names, and I commend them to you, and I ask that you support this motion.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dawes? Do you wish to speak, Councillor Dawes? All right, is anyone who wish to speak on this matter, or are you all very happy with these three alternate names? If Councillor Hubel?
I will just jump in quickly, Your Worship. This was discussed at a meeting that I was absent from. I did follow along online, and there were some very heated debates to it, and I'm very pleased to see. I mean, I grew up on a street named after a plant myself, and I'm very happy to see where we've ended up. So,
Councillor Jones? Of course.
I'll take the advice of Mr. Cant on that one.
I was going to mention that later on this evening, but Mr. Cant can respond to that. Obviously saw the article in the newspaper.
Through your worship, yes, we take over all open space, including that park, and we're expecting it to be handed over within about 12 months.
That then begs the question, do we get to name it? Because Glenside Park is, you know, one, it's kind of like grabbing a whole suburb to a particular tiny part of the suburb, and we might want to call it something else.
Can I defer to Mr. Cant on that one?
Yeah, we have a naming of public places policy, which council can choose to name that park or any park in the name of their choosing.
I'm just very pleased that we are actually going to take over that asset, but that was a condition under which they proceeded with their development. I was going to mention that later on this evening in sort of other business, but thank you for raising it. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Then Councillor Lemon, do you wish to speak again?
I will. I'm glad to hear that we've got a policy, given that we're going to take over Glenside Park, but I just actually say we have got Hazelwood Park, we've got Kensington Gardens Park, we've got a lot of parks that are named after suburbs, so it seems that we've got a bit of a theme going here. I hope that you support this motion.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Next one is the Council 14.10, community funding. Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm happy to move in accordance with the officer's recommendation. I think it's a great report, and I think it's really good that it follows the themes of community, environment and place, and I think has some great recommendations. So hopefully you'll support this.
Councillor Hubel seconding. Do you wish to speak? Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this motion? Councillor Turnbull.
Just on page 419, City of Burnside Environmental Awards.
No, we've already voted on the awards. They were earlier. We're now moving. We've now on to 14.10.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
If you have a question to that, you can always forward that directly to Farley Taylor, yeah, or to Mr. Cant, yeah. We've already voted on the previous one, Councillor Pickett. We're on to this last one. No, we're on to 429 now. Okay, where were we? Yes. Councillor Davey, have you nothing else to say? All right, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carry. We've already spoken about what I was going to raise in relation to other business. That hope that you'd seen that article in the newspaper about the that we've been waiting for them to put their publicity machine out and promote or let the community know. We weren't allowed to release any of that information. Cedar Woods. We weren't allowed to release that until their planning was all available when I was down there doing a video a month or two ago. But I'm really pleased that it's out there now for the community to see what is proposed, and it's not just going to be a big hole in the ground, and that of course we do take over that responsibility for maintenance of it as well once it becomes ours. Any other business?
If I may, just a 2-second update. I just want to let Council know that we've just now received formal approval for our federal stimulus funding for this little project list that I presented many months ago. Yeah, it's fair to say we needed to get James Stevens on the side with us to help us get pry the money out, and he came through for us. So those projects will start post haste, and I've got a meeting with the senior staff later this week to do a bit of a strategy session about the state and the secondary federal stimulus funding that's come through, so that we can start looking at what projects we need to look to present to council to fund as part of that. So I was just giving an update. So with regards to the stimulus funding that the federal government, the first round of stimulus funding, that's now coming through to us formally. Now there's a second round of federal stimulus funding which has just been announced, and the federal and the state government have just announced their $100 million stimulus to local government. And I'm just letting council know that the senior management team and I are meeting later this week to look at formulating some proposals back to council. Yeah.
The first lot, we had been promised the money, but it's just taken a long time for it to actually come. That's what we were chasing up with James Stevens, and we're grateful that has now come. Right, then I will now, unless there's anyone else who wishes to make a comment, I will close this meeting at 10:04 p.m. Thank you for your attendance, and thank you particularly for the staff, many of whom have had to wait a very long night. Thank you.